Yeah, baby. Yeah. The Mac is back with another video. Hello, the initiated. My name is Marcus Junnikala, and today we're having a look at Box Factory by Fracture Sounds. What is Box Factory? Well, in short, it's a percussion library. And as the name says, it's boxes. So if I take myself to their website, in short, it's a huge 40-piece ensemble of cardboard boxes, sampled in a concert hall. And I believe this concert hall is the same one where they've done most of their pianos and perhaps other libraries as well. They call it ultra playable. Also has some hard-hitting trailer sound design. What else? 13 unique ensembles, small boxes, and I presume bigger ones. Different stick types. That's always a huge positive. It just exponentially multiplies the diversity and usability of your percussion library. So for anyone who's making one, please include different kind of sticks, like felted ones. I personally like rods a lot, out of context, that I hope won't be taken, but yeah, they're really, really nice. All kinds of different sticks, just gives so many different textures for us to use as composers, so that's always great to see. The sound, so they've gone with this different mix type approach. So they've got a natural mix, an aggressive mix, gritty, and snappy. So this is a similar approach to Tom Factory. So interested in hearing how that manifests itself in this one. It has the newer interface, which I'm very fond of. I didn't think the old interfaces were bad. They're still very clear and clean, but this is just like an upgraded version of this. Very, very fond of this new interface personally. It does have that rhythm engine. We didn't check that out on Tom Factory because I'm not a big user of those, but I've heard tremendous things about it, so fantastic that it's in here. And then they got some one-shots. We're probably not going to look at those because I don't tend to use them a ton. But yeah, NKS support, etc. So, bunch of boxes in a hall. Sounds good to me. I always love these kind of novel, interesting, unique approaches because they're inspiring, and nicer to see people take unique approaches and risks instead of doing the same thing that has been done many times before. Not that there's anything wrong with that either, because great sounding libraries are great sounding, but yeah, kudos to them for actually going with something like this. So if you open the browser, you're going to see the different mix types here on the left. So you got the natural, aggressive, gritty, snappy. We're probably going to go through these in this order. Then you have some designed drums. No idea what that is. And then you got two folders of one-shots and also some split patches in a folder, which we're not going to go into, but always useful to have those in there in case you like working in that sort of a way. In terms of the interface, I think the main thing to pay attention to is the mic mix, which I think with percussion libraries is super useful. I tend to like sort of more drier, closer, more impactful, intimate sounds, and then play with my own reverbs. But that being said, I think which library? Oh yeah, Spotlight Piano, which I demoed yesterday, at least for me. I don't know when these are going to be released, but that had excellent mic options. It actually sounded better than what I could do with reverb in most cases. Very, very nicely placed sounds. So I'm hoping that's the case with this one as well, because like I said, oftentimes with percussion libraries, they tend to have maybe a bit more reverb than I would personally go for. So nice to have that there. Then they got this sculpt section, which has some, you know, punch control, which is probably like a transient-ish thing. Decay trim, that's pretty useful. Saturate and squash, which is probably some kind of a more aggressive compression. Ensemble stacks. So this is interesting size. So I guess that multiplies the amount of samples in there. That's kind of cool. Looseness, which I do like. I haven't seen many cases where this is implemented in a way that I go like, I want to use that. Like Audio Imperia's Cerberus has like a looser patch, which has a nice texture, but it kind of becomes a bit flabby. It loses a bit of that impact. So interested in seeing how that works in Spread. Don't know if that's like I don't know what it's doing inside the engine, taking samples from different areas of the recording field, or maybe it's some kind of a stereo enhancer thing, but probably not, because we got a stereo width here. So yeah, this is probably kind of sparsing out the samples in the soundscape, I'm guessing. And then you got reverb, which we're probably going to play with. Cool. And there you have the rhythm engine. So let's jump into it. What I'm going to do is I'm probably going to play a little bit of all of these, then kind of summarize what I think, and then yeah, move along from there. But let's make my pretty face visible. And this one is the natural mix. So let's see what that sounds like. Also, you'll only be hearing Box Factory in action, no added effects, nothing else going on. I only have a limiter on my master bus, which is there to make the level better or more decent or listenable for this video. I will be writing the limiter as we go along, because some sounds are going to be louder than others. If you hear clipping, it's probably the limiter. If it's not, I'll let you know either way. And yeah, the limiter is as transparent as I can possibly make it. That being said, we are dealing with a percussion library, so it will, you know, shave off some of those really more intense transients a bit. But I will try and make the balance as reasonable as possible in terms of getting a decent level and not affecting the sound too much. Also, Fracture Sounds did send me this copy of this library. So first of all, thank you to them for doing that. That being said, all opinions are my own, both in good and bad. I haven't been asked to say anything one way or the other, nor would I ever do that. So I think that covers the basics here. So let's start playing. So main instruments, natural mix. Okay, so firstly, I'm gonna decrease my buffer a bit because this isn't quite enough for me to play as responsibly as I'd like. So, buffer lowered. First things first, I really like the more sort of raw organic samples here. Some of these have a bit too much space to my taste, a bit too much reverb. Seems like there's a bit of a kind of a mid scoop there, and then maybe a bit too much brightness on some of these kind of bigger sounds that attempt to be kind of, you know, bigger, hard hitting things. But personally, what speaks to me right off the bat is the organic, more you know, realistic sounding things. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to pull down the reverb here to see how much is added from the engine versus these mixes here. And let's do that first. And I'm going to pull the ones that I'm really fond of here. So let's go back in there. So like here, it feels like we have, it's kind of like, sounds like it's a kick type of a thing, but there's not quite enough low end kind of meat there. Then we get a lot of reverb and a quite bright. Those top mids are pretty bright to my taste. Kind of the same thing going on here. Now this I like, because this is much more focused, much more texture, presence. Still quite a bit of the space in there. So let me actually adjust this perspective slider. So let's go all in on the close mics. Okay, so that's really cool. Okay, so yeah, I really like this perspective controller because it very easily allows me to adjust the mix balances between the mics. Because oftentimes it's the case that you pull up first, you know, the mic that you're most liking, I guess, and then you know, bring in some of the other elements. But this is a really quick way of finding a very good balance. And actually this slider, or should I say that the mic options here, they seem to be so refined that you can actually tremendously custom tailor the sound. So if you're like me, I don't tend to like, you know, absolutely massive, expansive reverb on my drums, because I find that it really takes up a lot of space in your mix. Now, this obviously depends on the type of music you're writing, but for me, it tends to be the case that big reverb kind of mushes out the mix, and then I need to cut it out somehow else. And I like to be very specific about my percussion reverberation. So this is a very nice thing to have, and it is indeed a very close mic, like a very dry mic. And there you can a bit hear some of the resonance of the space, but it's a very pleasant sound. I really like this sound. Sounds like I'm actually listening to the player, you know, next to them, and you get that raw, organic nature. I'm going to pull back to the middle here and find some of the other sounds I really digged. So this sounds good again, but a bit too much top mid, a bit too much reverb to my taste. So let's pull that back closer to the close mic position. Yeah, immediately that's a lot better. This is, I really love this control. It just makes the scope of this library so much bigger. Sorry about my slurring speech today, because I'm extremely tired. So I'm trying to keep it together, Marcus. Cool. Yeah, this is very nice to have in case the kind of out-of-the-box sound isn't your thing. So this I really like. Again, you can hear kind of the rawness, the hands-on, the kind of the smack and texture of the actual box. That sounds really weird to say in a sentence, but... So again, a bit too much space to my taste. So let's pull that back, or actually pull that in. Yeah, immediately very much focused, pulled to the front. So this kind of a mixed position with mostly close, bit of that mid in there, just a touch of the far mic. Seems to work best for me because this is very close. Just a bit of that size, expansiveness in there. Yeah, this is really good because on the first playthrough, I was kind of worried that the reverberation was too baked in there. And also having that on the bigger sounds, having that mid scoop, which is a very common technique to use to make a drum sound have kind of the low weight and enough information on the top to make it sound like it has an actual impact point. But it can make some sounds sound very quite hollow to my taste, and again, this is subjective at least to a degree. And also paired with that kind of big reverb, it very easily exposes sounds or makes them vulnerable to this kind of top mid harshness. So this is like immediately fixes all of those issues for me personally, to have the mic control, and that actually the mics have a difference that they sound good, and you know, they make a difference when you adjust them, because oftentimes with many libraries, so many of the mic positions sound redundant and not all that great. So nice to have them actually make a very tangible difference. So a nice bit of dynamic range there. I wish kind of maybe the curve of the dynamic slope would be a bit different, because I find it kind of difficult to connect with the very quiet notes and then have like a reasonable slope building up to the higher ones. Obviously you can adjust this in Contact or even with the keyboard itself, but obviously out of the box compatibility, straight out of the box, no pun intended, is better. But let me play with that just a bit more. I feel like maybe just a very top dynamic is missing, which is kind of I would want that, just that slight last step of impact, and maybe the stuff in between. It's probably not actually the quietest sounds that I find to be missing, because they are actually quite nicely there. But maybe the slope of it would translate better if I adjusted the curve a bit. I feel like it feels a bit too fast to me, but that's very nice. Very snappy. And again, if I take it to kind of the default position with a mid-heavy sound, a lot more space in there, which would be something that I want to pull back. So this is actually super impressive how big of a difference it makes, because this isn't usually the case with most libraries. So this, very, very, very impressed by this, and might be some of the best actual mic mixing work and recording work that I've heard in a sample library in a long while. Yeah, that's a huge difference. Doesn't tend to be the case with most percussion libraries. Yeah, I love stuff like that. Very, close up, very textural, very tangible, kind of crispy, very nice. Again, as an example, I'm going to pull it to the mid mic heavy balance and then pull it back. So immediately becomes less focused. Again, that's a stylistic difference, obviously, as well. But just to give you an idea of the scope of this. Yeah, pretty hard to get a very loud dynamic there on this one. Just not as many samples there. But yeah, that's the scope of that is massive. Yeah, I feel like if I go too much on the mid or the far, I begin to lose that presence, obviously, that focus. Hear a bit of some kind of a phasing thing as well happening on at least this sample there, which makes it kind of unfocused. But yeah, so I'm probably going to be like a heavy user on the close mic with just a tad bit of that mid mic blend in there. But the scope of that is pretty stunning. So and again here, way too much of that brightness, bit of that harshness in there to my taste. Obviously comes from sounds like a brush or something akin to that, maybe like could be like a very loose rod as well. So this one has the far mic is way too resonant, reverberant to me for this, but this has a good body on the mid mic. Yeah, and this gets definitely a bit too harsh on the mix for me, but You have a lot of sounds here, a lot of these thick top end brushy things, which are very similar in nature to one another. So feels like there's a bit of redundancy maybe in this section. It's just kind of sound like a different pitched version of the same thing, which again, oftentimes I'm pitching my percussion a lot of the time. So I'm not saying this might have utility, but I feel like there's a bit too much overlap here, a bit of redundancy. Yeah, definitely a ton of overlap there. So maybe that for you, that could be like, that's exactly what I want. But I'd maybe like to, because I like to have options, but maybe a bit of a textural, tonal difference would be nicer to actually have a distinctively different sound, because now it sounds like different iterations of the same one. I'm going to try some of these sticks with a close mic position here. That's actually very nice. I wasn't convinced based on this kind of mid mix. And this one ends up sounding mostly like sort of brighter air, which isn't exactly my thing. But once you pull it back, this is actually very nice, very snappy, very sort of, plopping on top. That's going to sit brilliantly in a mix. And it has just a bit of the sense of the recording space in there. So I really like these close mic positions. Those are very, very nice. All right, so we've kind of established where I stand in terms of the sound here, my preferences. So we're probably going to spend quite a bit of time in maybe this kind of close mid position here. I want to try on this natural, this looseness control. So let's see what that is about. Let's go with the close mic. I actually find the looseness tremendously improves the feel of it and the sound of it. It sounds less, synthetic, I guess would be the right word. Yeah, it's definitely less repetitive sounding. And I also feel like I can pull more dynamics out of it. I feel like that the top dynamic is missing in the looser, or is less impactful in the looser version, but otherwise this like a fully loose take is, I feel like it feels more playable and less repetitive. Let's do something in the mid of that, so 50-50 about. than fully loose. I feel like it does lose a bit of like a more focused edge. So I feel like it's hard to play the highest dynamic. So probably like a somewhere here in between, like a 50-50 would be, feels a lot better to play. Because that way I can get the strike, the hit, the higher dynamics where I want. So, okay, that's good to know. Let's max out the size here. So I'm guessing now it's stacking more samples. Okay, so that makes a massive difference. Yeah, so on some of these sounds, huge difference. This again exponentially expands the diversity and usability of this. It's actually super impressive. On some of these sounds, it just doesn't end up working. Maybe some of these higher sounds, they just become sort of too mushy and clappy. Let's try it on these sticks. Cool, so I feel like about halfway, again, gives you more size if that's what you're going for. If you want to have like a more intimate solo part, then go with the smallest size, but for like a bigger section, about halfway seems to work really well. Yeah, I mean, the small size gives you that kind of a solo performance feel. Very nice, very intimate, but if you want to go for a bigger ensemble thing. The biggest size gets a bit unfocused for most sounds, I'd say. There's a bit too much kind of spread. This is a good example. This sound is kind of nice as a solo thing, but it doesn't quite have enough weight. And if we add it in, it becomes very much thicker easily. So this is super useful stuff. Very well thought through. Obviously, some caveats that I personally find, but yeah, this this turns out to be far more versatile than I thought. Let's test the spread to know what that is about. So yeah, probably some kind of if they're recording ensembles, then they obviously would have different players in different positions, and this would probably spread those out. This makes this immediately far more realistic sounding. And again, you can hear the kind of the synthetic kind of what would be the word? Mechanical aspect of it lessening tremendously. So for a lot of these, I actually like the spread at maximum. Okay, I'm not going to make a joke about that. Okay, so there you can hear it becomes a bit unfocused and kind of a bit phasey. So it depends on the sound, obviously, but really cool control. Love how simple this is. So easy. Adjust the mics, size, looseness, spread. You can really dial in the sound you want to go for. Yeah, and some of these sounds just makes it instantly more realistic sounding. So very, very, very cool stuff. Yeah, let's just do the sculpt also real quick. So punch, probably like a transient control. So yeah, it kind of shortens the tail. Also a very good way of lessening the sound of the space if you still think it's too much reverb. So that's good. This sounds very refined, very mature. It doesn't sound unpleasant. It just kind of changes the shape of the sound. Actually super, super versatile because it basically gives you an additional take on the same sound. So yeah, it does that kind of transient designer thing. Very, very, very nice control. Again, it's just exponentially increasing the versatility of this. Let's try the saturate. Cool, very tastefully selected. Maybe like a tape, maybe like some kind of a transistor type of saturation there. Very tastefully done. Good piece to have there. And then let's do a squash. Cool, so kind of a aggressive compressor. I would probably do that out of the box. I'd just have probably better other solutions to that, but it's a nice utility to have. Maybe blend it in. Maybe it is exactly what you're looking for in that situation, but yeah, a good utility to have in there. Okay, cool. I think we covered kind of the basic controls here now through this natural preset. So let's jump into the other mixes. So next up, aggressive. Let's see what this sounds like. So a lot of these are quite heavily compressed. I think some of the, like this kick here, has a very nice top snap. And some of these have a bit too much distortion to my taste. Obviously, we got some of the squash going on here, so I would pull that back. Let's see how much of it is, and also pull back the reverb because the space actually is plenty as well. So I'm actually going to pull again back to the close mic to check out what the difference is. And obviously, well, not obviously, but as far as I've understood, these are actually, you know, baked in mixing choices that they've done into these patches. So it's not only the sculpt section here, but actually a different sample, as far as I've understood. So I'm hearing some kind of like, they're not artifacts, but actually probably sounds in the recordings that are amplified by the compression and saturation. So I'm actually going to compare this to the natural here. So out of the box, to my taste, a bit too heavy-handed on the compression and saturation, but I can imagine this can be a useful starting point for those who don't, you know, do their own mix processing, who would prefer to have something out of the box. I want to check out the gritty one here. So here definitely that mid scoop is quite heavy, and then quite a bit of that top end on the reverb, which makes it a bit harsh to my ear. So immediately not hearing a tremendous amount of utility for me personally. I really like the natural sounds to me very good. And it sounds to me like something you can easily put some compression on, put some saturation on, and you'd get, I'd get to the end result that I want to get to faster if I wanted to go even harder. But the natural ones are actually very nicely mixed and balanced. Also here, a lot more going on the sculpt front here. So let me pull those back, and I actually want to again go to this close mic position to hear the difference. So they have, you know, good quality. Like this sound was very, very snappy and nice, but I just can't help but think I would get, they do sound a bit too heavy-handed to my taste. So I would go with the natural ones and do my own possible tweaks in there. But this one is Snappy. So this is very solid. Very nice, solid, low-end kind of pillow, and then a good sort of moist enough transient making this very, very solid. Very, very playable, actually. I want to test this against the natural one. Yeah, so big difference. This sounds a lot better to me, this snappy one here. Even with, like, you know, minor adjustments. Again, here, a bit too much of that brightness, but very nice sound. A lot of these kind of lie in worlds between different sounds. So this kind of sounds like a clap, but it's not. It kind of sounds like some kind of a boxier drum, but it's very nice because a lot of the time you're looking for these kind of sounds. You, like, I want to go for a clap-ish sound, but not like evoke the sound of a clap. So this is really good to have. Very nice. I actually like this Snappy mix as a out-of-the-box starting point the most. This, to me, sounds like the kind of an equivalent to the hyped mix in Tom Factory. So out of the box, I would probably start with the Snappy mix because this, I feel like, has the most utility for all use cases and genres. Very impactful, has a nice sense of size and presence, has that kind of cinematic hybrid type of sound. So this would probably be where I would just, like, this would be the first thing that opens up with this library. And if you wanted to go more natural, then you can do so through the natural setting. But this sounds very nicely balanced to me. It doesn't have the same issues that I personally hear in gritty and aggressive. They're a bit too heavy-handed, but this one sounds very, very, very nicely balanced to me, even with this mid mix. So let's play a bit more with this, and I'll pull it to the close one. I'll see what I think. But yeah. Many of these end up just sounding like noise with a lot of air here at the top end, so I would go probably with the natural mix for those. But this is really cool. Excuse me. I'm going to pull to the close mic position here fully and see what these sound like. So yeah, they definitely end up losing some of that that balance. They get a bit too aggressive, a bit too harsh here. So let's mix back in some of that mid. Yeah, getting that body, getting that resonance back in there. Very nice. And probably somewhere between close and mid is kind of my ideal, because this one, again, is baking some of that reverberation in there. And that comes with, I feel like the reverberation samples could benefit from a bit of high-end kind of shaving off, something very smooth to kind of round out some of that high-end, because I would need to be mixing that out in the mix, otherwise it would get too harsh to my taste, too bright. So let's pull back a bit to like an ideal balance for me. Something like that. Super nice. Yeah, so this would be kind of like my universal general kind of hyped mix equivalent compared to Tone Factory starting point, and then go for the natural one if you want to go more sort of organic. But this sounds to me really good for like a hybrid type of a sound. Cool. Okay, I think those covered the basics. Let's see what this designed drums patch is about. No idea, so we're just gonna discover as we go along. So as you look at the interface, the mixes are disabled now because it's a single mic patch. So let's see what that is about. Okay, cool. So a very stylized hybrid percussion type of a thing. So they've taken some of the samples, processed them in ways, and I really like this top end stuff. Always looking for kind of interesting percussive sounds that have a pitched element that is coming through the processing of those sounds. So these are super useful, very nice, very good for, you know, hybrid kind of soundtrack stuff. Some of these, again, very heavy-handedly processed, so I would probably need to go to either the snappy sounds or the natural sounds and process them myself, because it doesn't seem like we have a way of backtracking from there, from these sounds. But yeah, pretty useful stuff there, especially on this top end to my taste. Yeah, good utility there. Then you got Oneshots. Let's check them out real quick. because you can never really have too many whooshes and risers. I think there's actually still quite a lack of riser and hit type of libraries. Obviously, you got rise and hit from Galaxy Instruments. You got Gravity by Heaviosity, which is probably the one I use the most. But pretty tough to find these. I'm sure there's a bunch of manufacturers or developers out there, but they probably tend to be smaller companies and kind of difficult to find. But let's check out booms and hits. I gotta say, these are actually really good. Very well balanced, very maturely done. Nothing here goes like too hard. It's obviously very stylized, very tasteful use of effects, very well mixed. You got that impact, you got that size, but it's not. None of this sounds harsh to me. Very nice. Actually, this is going to be super useful. So, and again, you get the same sculpt controls here, which are cool. So then we got whooshes and risers. So pretty interested in these because those ones sounded pretty good. Okay, so very good. Same thing here. Tremendously produced, mixed, very balanced, very mature. Tremendously. I mean, just really solid stuff. You have the impact, but you don't have any of those harsh elements that make them difficult to put into a mix. So very impressed by those. All right, I think we checked out everything. Obviously, we still have split patches in here, but we're not going to go into those today. So yeah, I guess it's time to summarize this, although I did try and do my best to do that along the way here. But personally, my favorites are the natural and Snappy. The aggressive and gritty are a bit too processed for me and difficult to backtrack from those, but with the natural and with the Snappy, it's very easy to just apply a bit more sort of easier compression and saturation to get them to be harsher, or should I say more aggressive or gritty. So yeah, and like I said, Snappy, this is probably the best kind of starting point for kind of a hybrid big percussion sound, and then natural is sort of more versatile and obviously more organic if you want to go down that road. Designed drums, I liked especially some of the top end processed sounds, and the Oneshots were super solid, so I'm really happy to actually have those in the arsenal to use. So top notch stuff. And also I should say, let's actually get this out of here. A few words about the controls. This is super versatile. This ensemble stack section, very good. Actual utility, because oftentimes with a lot of libraries, when you start playing with these, it's just like fluff, and you don't actually get much for your knobs. So super useful. The mic mix control makes this like, I don't know, 10 times the library that it would be simply out of the box if you just went with the mix that it starts with. So actual super versatile use here. I'm personally a fan of the sound of a close mic, and with some of the sounds with like a mid mix or something in between. Very useful. And yeah, I think that kind of covers the overall take on that. But super versatile just by having the mic control and this ensemble stack. In terms of the sound of it, I was expecting a bit more of like a sort of raw, organic, actual, hands on a box. So it is definitely more sort of a generalized sounding than what I expected. With some of the natural samples, you can clearly hear the actual boxes and some of this sort of more raw, organic aspect of it. So this is definitely a kind of I would dominantly describe it as a kind of a general percussion library. But what I love about it is that it's not like this is a taiko or this is a this or that percussive instrument, but it's just like, hey, here's a box and we did a bunch of percussive sounds with it. So there's a certain mental freedom that comes from that, and you sort of think about sounds coming from a different perspective. But that being said, you do get some of those boxy sounds with the natural samples. I would have preferred to have a bit more of that, because I just tend to like those kind of sounds a lot. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely like a kind of general percussive library for I'd say mainly for cinematic use. But yeah, you kind of have to get your hands on it to really wrap your head around what it is. But yeah, you get a ton with this. I don't think anything comes to mind where you get so much versatility just with this control here. Just so many different sounds and textures, and the mic balances combined with this ensemble stack section, which works fantastically, just gives you so much scope. So again, I said this about Tom Factory, that it could very well be the only percussive sample library that you need, depending obviously on the type of music you want to write. But a very similar thing could be said about this, and this has even more versatility and scope. It's less sort of traditional and typical, has more like a generalized sound to it, rather than Tom Factory being like very much more leaning towards what we come to expect out of percussion libraries in a sort of typical sense for cinematic writing. But this definitely, I mean, these two together are a really, really powerful combo. But yeah, I think that about wraps it up. I think this has been going on for long enough. So let me know what you think down in the comments. If you have this yourself and you use it, what do you think about it? Or if you just checked out this video, what do you think about some of the stuff we touched on? So again, thanks to Fracture Sounds for sending this over to me to check out. Always a pleasure, and always super impressed about or with what you're doing over there. So thanks for that. But for those of you watching and listening, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Finished.